Hello, for my informational speech, I've chosen to speak about a band called Rush. Rush is a progressive rock band originally from Toronto, Canada, and is made up of members of Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and the late Neil Peart. In the early years of the band, the original lineup was established in the city of Willowdale, Toronto, in 1968, and the original lineup consisted of the original bassist and vocalist Jeff Jones, guitarist Alex Lifeson, and drummer John Rutsey. A few weeks of life into the band, Jeff Jones left the band and was replaced by well-known Geddy Lee, who was a classmate of guitarist Alex Lifeson. With this lineup, the band played shows in the youth center of St. Theodore's Church in New York. After honing their skills on the local bar and high school dance circuit, the band members released an album containing the Buddy Holly song Not Fade Away and an original song by the band called You Can't Fight It in 1973. The single generated little popularity, and due to lack of support from the record company, the band formed their own independent label named Moon Records. With the formation of this label, the band released its self-titled debut album in 1974. Rush had little local popularity until the album was picked up by a radio station in Cleveland, Ohio, when DJ Donna Helper chose Working Man for her playlist. The song's blue-collar theme resonated with hard rock fans, and the popularity led to the album being re-released by Mercury Records in the US. After the release of this album, Rutsey left the band due to health difficulties, which led to drummer Neil Peart being added as a member of the band just 16 days prior to the band's first US tour. Peart also began writing lyrics for the band, as Lee's main interests were in writing the instrumental aspects of the band, which he and Lyson would continue to do. With the roles of writing clearly laid, the band released their second album, my favorite album, entitled Fly By Night. The lyrics written in this album were mostly based around Peart's interest in fantasy and science fiction, and followed a progressive rock instrumental style, and this style would continue and intensify in their junior album entitled The Farewell to Kings, released in 1977. A few years and albums later, Rush was on their fifth album, Permanent Waves. In this album, the band experimented with influences of reggae, and the songs became shorter and more radio-friendly with songs such as The Spirit of Radio and Free Will. This became a near tradition in the album Moving Pictures in 1981, when the band reached their height of popularity with songs such as Limelight and Tom Sawyer. Deep into the 1980s, the band began to write with more synthesizer and less instruments, as Peart began utilizing electronic percussion sounds, much like most of the bands of the 1980s. The band also created their first and only top 40 hit, New World Man. While Lifeson's presence of guitar work was still present, it was much changed as he began to experiment with different styles and different guitar processing hardware. While the album Signals in 1982 was very popular, the album did not gain much success and sold dramatically less than the previous albums. In the 1990s, Rush began to deviate from the electronic sounds of the 1980s, and composition began to become centered around guitars and live drums, with one album being released in 1993 and another in 1997. Following these albums, Rush started a North American tour with no opening act and named it An Evening with Rush. This tour was broken into two segments, with the first leg spanning from October to December of 1996 and the second leg from May to July of 1997. Following this tour, the band sadly entered a 5-year hiatus as tragedy struck Peart's family when his daughter Selena died in a car accident in 1997, and his wife battled with cancer, which caused her untimely death and passing in 1998. During this time, Peart took time to reflect and traveled throughout North America on his motorcycle and covered 55,000 miles before he decided to return to the band. Upon Peart's return in 2002, the band began writing once more and released their album Vapor Trails, which, for the first time, contained no keyboards whatsoever. This followed a faster paced tempo and took nearly 14 months to finish. Following this album release, the band embarked on their first tour in 6 years, which included some of their largest crowds of their career and solidified their success as the band after nearly 40 years. This constant success in writing and touring continued throughout the 2000s, featuring cameos in films, performance on late-night talk shows, until the band's disbandment in 2018. After 41 years of tirelessly touring the globe and 19 total studio albums, the band decided that they had no intentions of recording any new music or playing live shows. This disbandment may have been partially due to Peart's struggle with brain cancer, which led to his death in January of 2020. As you may know, I've played drums in my adolescence and adult life, and Rush has always been a staple in my music library, as well as a large inspiration for playing drums. Although their all digital music of the 80s was not my favorite, Rush never fell short of being one of my favorites and one of the most successful bands with over 40 million records sold.